Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. This is the B block or second section of our news show. I'm Alaina Pinto. There is another European country entering the legal space of cannabis. This time it's the country of Turkey that has decriminalized low THC cannabis products. Now, only licensed pharmacies will be allowed to distribute the plant medicine, but there will be health products, supplements, and personal care items for sale and by prescription. The Ministry of Agriculture will regulate the growers, and the Ministry of Health will set up regulations for the licensing, processing, and sales. You will have to get a doctor, though, to write a prescription for you to take to those licensed dispensaries in that country in order to get your medicine. With more from across the pond, here's Ben Stevens, the editor of the Business of Cannabis, with the European Cannabis Report.
I'm Ben Stevens, the editor of Business of Cannabis, with this week's report from Europe for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. More and more European governments are acknowledging a simple fact, that cannabis prohibition has largely failed to reduce use or dismantle illegal markets. In response, an increasing number of countries are rethinking their approach. The Czech Republic, as an example, which we've spoken about extensively in the past, continues to move ahead with partial legalization. But now even more cannabis conservative countries like Turkey are introducing restricted access for things like medical cannabis. Now Slovenia is taking its own step toward reform. Lawmakers from the ruling coalition, made up of the Freedom Movement and the Left, have introduced a bill to regulate personal cannabis use. Natasha Sukic, a member of parliament from the Left, says this proposal reflects the will of the people. She pointed to the volumes of data suggesting that cannabis poses no greater health risk than legal substances like alcohol and tobacco. The bill is designed not just to regulate use, but to help remove stigma surrounding it. The draft legislation follows a non-binding referendum held in the 2024 European elections, where a narrow majority of voters supported the legalisation of cannabis for personal use, and a large majority backed legal cultivation for medical purposes. If passed, the new law would allow adults to grow a limited number of cannabis plants, carry small amounts in public, and possess larger quantities at home, as seen in Germany. While sales would remain banned, individuals could share cannabis in small amounts without payment. A separate law passed in June already permits private companies to grow cannabis for medical use under licence. The bill also addresses road safety and workplace rights. THC for drivers would be strictly enforced, with escalating fines from €300 to €1,200 based on concentration levels. Police would be authorised to test drivers, but employers would be barred from drug testing employees for cannabis, citing consumer protection laws. Despite backing from the coalition, the proposal is yet to win over all government partners. The Social Democrats have not endorsed the bill and is expected to undergo further public consultation and revision before a final vote. That's all from me this week. I am Ben Stevens, the editor of Business of Cannabis, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
I'm Dave Barton from Thermador with your UK Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. In an interview earlier this week, head of Curaleaf UK, Jonathan Hodgson, expressed concerns around access to medical cannabis, stating that we need to do a better job getting a clear, unified message out to the wider public, adding that the messaging isn't always reaching the mainstream. He went on to outline what he thinks are the major barriers to increasing patient numbers here in Britain. These include awareness, understanding, and mainstream media reporting, which he described as not having evolved. Hopeful that the UK's patient numbers could double in the next 12 to 24 months, Hodgson also stated that most people becoming patients now face fewer delays, better continuity of supply, more choice, better quality, improved service levels, and better affordability too. However, he says very little about trying to better understand the UK patient community, or those self-medicating via the illicit market, estimated to be around 1.8 million people. The UK's medical cannabis market has shown consistent growth over the last 2 years, with some clinics reporting double-digit growth month on month. New NHS stats corroborate this too, with some 300,000 items being prescribed between April 23 and 24, more than double the previous year. That's all for this week's UK Report. I'm Dave Barton from Thermador, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis News Report. So what we have in Canada this week is the HMRA, so the Canadian Health Regulatory Agency has put out a much more updated guidance when it comes to the pesticides they're going to be utilizing within the cannabis and hemp industry. We want to make sure that when it comes to inhalation, it is being overall successful, but overall becoming unharmful to our overall system. So what they are now not only introducing, but they are putting into effect is that each company has a 2-year compliance of being able to do the proper studies when it comes to their pesticides being used within their facility. Also, their biopesticides, so their secondaries, aren't necessarily exempted, but they aren't going to be something that is going to be as needed underneath the compliance, which means that this is going to be helping most of the cannabis that are going to be produced within Canada a little bit more cleaner due to the fact of an overall pesticide look on what is going to be better for the plants, but going to be more healthier for our overall bodies, especially when it comes to smoking and vaping. So when it comes to Canada's news this week, this is Debi Facey with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis News Report. Peace.
Back here in the United States, the tiny state of Delaware has opened its adult use sales last Friday. The state is allowing all the existing medical dispensaries to open its doors to adult use sales. Their governor, Matt Meyer, toured a dispensary this past week in anticipation of the opening on August 1st. Their governor shared this quote: Delaware has taken a major step forward by launching a legal adult use cannabis market that prioritizes equity, safety, and accountability. This new industry will generate critical revenue to strengthen our schools, infrastructure, and public health systems, while creating real opportunities for entrepreneurs. This revenue also gives us a powerful tool to invest in the communities most impacted by the war on drugs, addressing past wrongs. Unquote. In the meantime, Virginia continues to limp along with a medical-only program, but advocates are hoping that when their veto-happy Governor Glenn Youngkin finishes his term, his successor will support the legislative efforts that created a bill for a legal adult use market. That's the bill that Youngkin vetoed twice during his term. Joe Parsons is confident change will come soon. Here's his Virginia report for this week.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection from Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 through WB, and reporting from Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I reported last week about the confirmation of Terrence Cole, the former Secretary of Public Safety in Virginia, and now the acting head of the DEA. During the confirmation process, he made a promise to make the rescheduling process of moving cannabis from Schedule 1 on the CSA to Schedule 3 his top priority. If you remember, I said I was a little skeptical. As the story has unfolded over the last week, I was right in my reservations and feelings on the issue. Earlier this week, the DEA released Terry Cole's strategic priorities. They included anti-trafficking enforcement, Mexican cartels, the fentanyl supply chain, drug-fueled violence, and even cryptocurrency in the dark web. In the news release, they stated that Administrator Cole's top priority is to increase the pressure on the drug cartels and combat the deadly drug crisis with urgency and resolve. While reducing cartels is very important, it is miles away from the top priority that he used to be confirmed to his position. Now only a little more than a week into his job, cannabis has once again been pushed out of the top 10 list, and in the latest press release, it's missing altogether. Cannabis has been wrongfully placed on the same level as LSD and heroin for now 55 years, and the same urgency and resolve should be used to allow for the growing industry to have safe banking, fairness to patients, and allow for more needed medical research that has already been established to continue. We don't know what Terrence Cole will do in the years to come, but as of right now, he has shown the cannabis community that he's nothing more than just smoke and mirrors. Well, that's going to do it for this week from Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 through WB in Charlottesville, and reporting for WPCM-TV's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
One more note from Massachusetts. The State Psychiatry Society is endorsing a bill to decriminalize psilocybin possession. There are 1,400 psychiatrists in the Bay State, and this is the first time a psychiatric association has endorsed the drug, which has been hailed as a great tool in battling mental illness. Now let's head down to the Southwest, where our Nevada and Tribal Lands reporter Tina Tasaka reports from every week. This week, she traveled to New Mexico for a trade show, but don't think a change of state will stop her from telling the story from Nevada. This week, she has that and the latest on the rollout on tribal lands. Here's Tina.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada and Tribal Nations report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. As I'm doing a little roadshow and attending the Cannabis Banking Symposium, I'm reporting remotely from the stunning Santa Ana Star Casino in Bernalillo, New Mexico. This was the first Indian casino when it opened in 1993. This Indian gaming casino, owned by the Pueblo of Santa Ana tribe, is beyond full service with a luxury hotel, conference center, bowling alley, restaurants, casino with 1,300 slots, and the stage at the Star nightclub. This week, cannabis bankers, regulators, credit unions, and CRBs, cannabis-related businesses, came together to talk about the big pain points in cannabis, banking and payment options, due to cannabis leaning heavily on being an all-cash business. Two powerhouses, Association for Cannabis Banking and NASCUS, National Association of State Credit Union Supervisors, came together to continue to build these alliances within the banking community so we can further extend great banking services to all cannabis companies across the U.S. safely, securely, and compliant. In Nevada, the first cannabis-friendly hotel, the Lexi, has accumulated liens for unpaid water, garbage, contractor invoices, room taxes, and a $11.6 million default notice on a loan. Property taxes are 3 years delinquent, totaling about $114,200 plus $36,230 in penalties. The owner, Alex Risk, has decided to sell the hotel to pay the debts. That's it for the Nevada highlights and tribal nations. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
There's another multi-state operator that is in trouble. Air Wellness has entered into a restructuring phase and will sell off assets in many states, including Florida, Ohio, Nevada, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. As part of this new agreement, Air Wellness's seniors shareholders will purchase some of the assets in those states, as well as take on some debt liability. The company is also taking on a $50 million debt liability that will allow operations to continue until the asset sales are completed. Another multi-state operator with a base here in Massachusetts is MaryMed. They announced this week that they are taking over management of Tilt Cultivations and Processing Facility in Pennsylvania. The deal allows MaryMed to take a 12.5% gross revenue fee in exchange for its management team. Next up is the impact on the stock market for cannabis stocks, and here's our man Doug Miller, who is high on Wall Street.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Fresh forecasts suggest U.S. cannabis sales may top $44 billion in 2025, fueled by adult use expansion in 20-plus states. However, California's proposed 19% excess tax and increased licensing fees have raised alarms. Business leaders warn of a potential extinction event if operating costs rise too steeply. And Aurora Cannabis is making big waves, not in Canada's recreational scene, but on the international stage. The company has fully pivoted to medical cannabis, reporting a 93% year-over-year increase in global medical sales, now outpacing its domestic Canadian revenue. Their annual general meeting is set for August 8th, and all eyes will be on future international moves. Aurora's also earning praise for its Strains for Heroes initiative, donating 5% of its profits to veteran organizations, combining purpose with performance. So let's see what Aurora's stock chart looks like. It is trading around $4.48, and we could see some market pullback for a few weeks, but then it's going to set up and run. So trade smart and lock in those profits. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, I'm Doug Miller.
One of the most interesting developments in the acceptance of adult use sales of cannabis is the impact on the alcohol industry. Daily use of cannabis has already surpassed daily use of alcohol, and that industry wants to make sure they get in on the THC-infused beverages market. That part of the industry is one of the fastest growing sectors. Two brands that are eyeing investments in cannabis is Constellation Brands and Pernod Ricard. Reuters reports this week that Constellation Brands, which makes Corona and Modelo, are in talks with THC-infused brands, while Pernod Ricard, the makers of Absolute Vodka, has already met with Brez, an infused beverage company. In the Reuters report, though, the first half of this year, United States beer sales are down 6%, and wine and spirit sales are down 5.6% and 9% each. The alcohol industry has the luxury of being able to adapt and even take advantage of the cannabis sector, which is struggling to survive. In the meantime, Oklahoma is continuing to get signatures to launch its ballot initiative for adult use sales in the 2026 election. Here's Kimmie Cannabis with an update from her state.
I am Kimmie Cannabis of Can I Talk About It with the Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I am here at Terp Float 2025 in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And as you can see or hear, my voice is almost gone because I have been having a blast all weekend. And you can see the floaters behind me. This is one of those times that you want to celebrate with all the bad news and all of the things in cannabis that we hear about all the time. This is the important stuff that we want to amplify as well when community and different brands get together. This event has been amazing. You see companies and brands from all over the state, and we get together, we get on the river. It's a family event. We have the best live music here. It has been a whole vibe. So I have a couple people that I would like to bring on and ask them about their Terp Float experience. I am here with a few of our Terp Float. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
I'm Lara. Lara lives loudly on Instagram. This is Cameron. This is my boo thing.
Hello.
We're here to escape the pressures of life and experience the floating of terps.
You know, what brought you here for that?
So my first time, I actually heard about Terp Float before I ever went, and then I saw that there was an opportunity to volunteer and help out with some brands and stuff in the backgrounds. So Cameron and I actually volunteered, and we came up here and helped and, worked and did a lot of stuff, and we didn't get to float though. So this is our first time getting to float, and it is wonderful.
It has been amazing. Did you float yesterday when it rained?
Yes, I did. Super wet, super cold, but if you had the rain gear like this hat, it helped a lot. I will say this as well, from last year or 2 years ago when we were here before, the staff has stepped up. I think they've done incredible this time as far as people working it. Just a shout out to you guys, been awesome. So thank you guys so much for putting this on this year. And yeah, it's been great. Both days floating, whether it's raining or the sun's out. I've been having a great time.
So let me say this, the volunteers at this Terp Float experience have been working so hard and brought the vibes and the smiles to all of us. So we do want to do a special Can I Talk About It Cannabis Coast to Coast News shout out to all of the volunteers from the Terp Float experience down here, because this has been amazing.
And all the booths are looking awesome. All the booths this year looking great. Everyone's super nice. It's easy to talk to people. Like, the music isn't too loud, at the time, so they give you enough time to go, talk and learn about each booth. So I love that. And yeah, I just think it's more organized this year.
Oh yes, we got a little action. Let's hear it for fire, rescue, police. Well, that is it from Terp Float 2025. I am Kimmie Cannabis from Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Peace, love, and all that good stuff.
That'll do it for the B block, but we have much more coming up in the final section of our show, including a 3-day festival in San Francisco, headlined by Dead Again, the group of remaining members of the Grateful Dead rock band. Their concerts are legendary for the music and the aroma of cannabis that is always part of the experience. But this time, the Dead will be allowing sales and consumption for the first time. We have details coming up next on Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
I am the mayor of the greatest city in the world, and it is my privilege to welcome Dead and Company.
Hi, I'm Tina Tasaka with Oh Yes.
And I am Tanya Griffin with Pro Cannabis Media Coast to Coast.
Jimmy, we met and we wanted to say hello.
Hey, Jimmy.
So we're going to end the conference. Hi, Jimmy.
Thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore, so I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now, if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegits filtration system. What? The Weegits.com, Weegits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. Now, the guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. So here's how it works. You start with that glass bowl, you flame on, and then you inhale nice and smooth so the smoke goes through 3 different filtration and cooling systems. Now, if pre-rolls is your thing, you can use the Weegits filter that a pre-roll fits into perfectly. That's right, or even a chillum. The more filters, the smoother the draw. Best of all is the price. You can get all this, or one or the other, for just a few bucks. It'll cool your smoke and you'll give your lungs a break. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weegits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.